So let's have a look at the Arkansas Derby, and turned into be not a coming out party, but maybe a confirmation for Muth.
Derby.
And this would definitely have some Derby top 20
we're off in
implications
the
for sure. The
Arkansas
break was pretty
Derby.
even. You see, in
And a
Muth
good break for all
was
the
pretty
runners in the
keen
race, and there was a roar
to
from
get
the
up
crowd
early
as they
with
left
Time
the
for
gate.
Truth,
Time for
who
Truth
we
up on
thought
the pace. He's
would
proven it. And there's
we
Muth
thought
on
would be
hold
eager to
right
get
now.
on the
These two
engine,
together
and,
with
and
one
did.
lap to go.
Just Steele
runs in the third position.
ran a hell of a
Timberlake
race.
fourth.
Really
Sweeney
didn't
Payne
expect
approaching
it.
the turn on the heels
Just
of
I
the
think
leader.
this
Around the
horse is
turn,
a
in
little
front,
better than
Patriot in the
maybe
fifth position.
even I
Early
thought, and I
dynamic,
like
little bit
Just
speed,
Steele.
but more settled down than in his last race.
You see
These two
Timberlake
lengths off
covered
the
up a
leaders,
little
they're
bit.
tightly clumped up. Mystic
Kind of
Dave
keen,
Liberal
and
Arts,
that's the
next
thing with
Liberal Arts
Timberlake.
has to
We
take
know
up
about
here.
that he
It
will
drops
get
towards the
aggressive
back
on
of the field
occasion.
here. Imperial gonna
And I think
alongside
this
of
was
him.
a case
Awkward
here
move
where
for
they
Liberal
just let
Arts.
him run.
He's at the
They
back
just
with
decided to let him
Imperial
go,
Guns. So
and
they're down the back stretch
rather
here.
than use him up,
Muth
trying
on
to
the
restrain
outside,
him.
and
So
Timberlake, Flavian Pratt lets him loose on the inside, lets it out a notch, and he's the pacemaker
I
down
see
the back
Dymatic
stretch. So it
saving
is
ground along the
Timberlake,
rail,
the
and
Rebel winner, and
Liberal
four
Arts
and a
had
half
all
length.
kinds of
Muth
trouble.
perched outside of him,
Just
pounding from
really
the
on the
outside.
backstretch,
Just
had to
Steele
take
third,
up,
Time for Truth between
checked,
horses.
and
Dymatic is down on the inside.
just
Then in
really,
front,
I think his
Patriot
jockey
will take
put
the
him in a
maiden
really
drop
bad
back.
position.
Mystic Dan patiently
So
ready. He's
this
out
is
of
all.
harm's
I
way
wish
on
there
the
was a
outside.
do-over
Seventh
for him
lengths
for
off
the
the
Derby,
pace.
but
Liberal Arts
maybe in the
trying to
Lexington
re-rally
they'll
in the
throw
second
him in,
last
trying
spot. And
to get him
Imperial
in.
Guns
But
out the back around the
I didn't
fourth
think he
turn. There goes Muth.
ran
The
badly.
challenge
I think you
Timberlake,
can
and
see
the
him
race is
closing
on
there
now.
pretty well. I
Muth
just
on the
think he had way
outside,
too much to
strides
do
the
after
hole.
that trouble early.
Timberlake
But
back in
back to the
second as
front
Muth
runners, you
takes
see
the
Muth
lead.
just taking
Muth
over,
and
and
Juan
Timberlake
Hernandez have a quarter
cannot
mile
stay
more
with
to
him.
get, and Hernandez gives him the cue
And I
to
heard
go,
somebody
and Muth
say
off the
Timberlake
turn,
is
still in front.
verified
Timberlake
2,
second.
or
Jeff Steele
verifying
third, then Mystic
2,
Dan, who tries
and
to rally on.
there may be
Furlong
some
to
truth to
go.
that. I
It's
don't know,
Muth.
but
Jeff Steele
really
running
just
huge in
kind of
second.
threw in a
Timberlake
clunker here.
third. Muth with a
Really did not
16th
rise
go.
to the
He's opened up
challenge,
by
and
three.
that's 2
And
races
it's
against the
Muth
better
coming down the
3-year-olds
stretch,
that
and
he
Hot
hasn't
Springs to win it.
answered the bell.
Muth, the
So
son of good
you see
magic,
Just Steele
wins
ran
the
a big one.
Arkansas Derby.
Mystic Dan
Jeff Steele
ran a
second,
lot
Mystic
better than I
Dan
thought he was
third.
going to get
Timberlake
third.
flattens
Had a
out
little
to
bit in
fourth.
the tank. It just wasn't enough, and I think it does validate
And now
that
entering the winner's circle, the winner of
that
the
he was
2024
mud aided
Arkansas
in
Derby, number
the
7,
Southwest Stakes,
Muth.
but I think he's got
Muth is a
enough points for the
3-year-old
Derby,
Bay
so
Bull, Magic out of Hoppa by
we'll see
Uncle
what
Bud.
happens.
Muth
But
was bred in
Muth
Kentucky by
definitely the
Donnell
star of the show.
Corporation, now owned by Zidane Racing Stables and trained by
If we look to grade out the Arkansas Derby, we could really call this more of a pass-fail kind of class, just because the winner really didn't, Muth winning the race doesn't do anything except take points away from another horse who was running in this race for the Derby. He was certainly at the top of the class. Most of the horses in here ran about as we expected. Will Take It, first stakes effort, probably a little too much for him, but I didn't think he ran a bad race. He just wasn't good enough, and that was that. Timberlake, obviously, major league disappointment. He was met in the eye by a really good horse, and he didn't answer the bell. And that had nothing to do with fitness, because I'm sure there's a lot of people saying, well, he didn't need this race to get in the Derby, and that's entirely true. But you certainly don't want a horse going into the Derby not running in good form. And that was just a clunker. He was aggressive early, a little keen. I think the jockey just had to let him go rather than use him up, trying to restrain him. And when Muth met him in the eye, he had no answer. Timberlake has been a kind of a mercurial horse this year. A lot of people like him, a lot of people don't. And I always thought that he would get better, as Brad Cox's do, because he has the pedigree for 2 turns. But I don't think that had much to do with it here. I just don't think he was. He didn't answer the bell, let's say. So big downer, and he'll be plummeting on the Derby top 20, that's for sure. Dymatic saved ground, tried to make a rally, didn't have it. Probably didn't take a move forward, kind of plateaued, and maybe he'll be better later this summer. Time for Truth tried to take it on the front end, and he was a little quick to wilt. That was one thing. So he gets a C minus. But I didn't think, he ran an okay race. He's just not in the class of Muth, really is what it came down to. Liberal Arts, this is almost an incomplete for, because through no fault of his own, his jockey put him in terrible position where he had to check, ran into all kinds of trouble, and basically on the backstretch, his race was over. He did re-rally, however, and he closed well, and I think that shows a horse who, number one, has the desire, and number two, was ready to run a better race than expected. He was he was closer to the pace, which is something I really always like to see with late runners because it tells me that they're progressing. So let's see if they throw him back into Lexington and trying to get him into the Derby. I think he'd be very interesting if he can get into the 20. Informed Patriot just isn't good enough. Probably ran his race, but just isn't the caliber of the other top 3-year-olds, and I think he proved it there. So bye-bye Informed Patriot. Won't have to worry about him again. Muth, the star of the show, no question about it. This horse never runs a bad race. Never does. The only, Prince of Monaco losing to him early in his career was, and he still finished second, and he finished second in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile when Fierceness Freak. This is an excellent horse. And they may have treated this like his Kentucky Derby, and if they did, he answered the bell, ran a huge race. It's a shame we're not going to see him at Churchill Downs. It would be really cool to see him in the Preakness to see what he'll do if that's where they send him next. But just an outstanding horse, and really like Muth. Just Steel ran a huge race, and I did not expect it. I thought this horse was really in need of a break, but leave it to the coach to confound. And Just Steel, I think, showed that he's got the want to, the desire to run, and you always love to see that in a colt. Big horse, and he may surprise in the Derby. I don't know that a 1.25 miles is necessarily what he wants, and being by Justified, but he's a big horse. He should be able to handle a field of 20, and provided he can get a good trip and get a good post position, he may be a threat for the exotics at a price. So Just Steel did his job, punched the ticket for the coach for the Derby, maybe his last one. Certainly hope not, but be nice to see D. Wayne Lucas in the Derby again. Mystic Dan really surprised me. Ran basically the same trip as he did in the Southwest Stakes, except it was on a dry track. He saved ground, stayed along the rail, made his move, and it wasn't good enough. It was a mild rally at best, and he got a kind of a suck-up third. He wasn't any threat to do anything in this race, so I guess he'll be in the Derby, and I probably will toss him because being by Golden Sense, and he didn't validate that Southwest Stakes in the Arkansas Derby. So to me, Mystic Dan, another one who will be plummeting on the Derby top 20. Imperial Gun, they tried to get the suck up for third or fourth, with leaving him all the way at the back. It was no factor in the race whatsoever, but okay. So he gets a C-, but really weren't expecting much out of him anyway. So obviously, Muth, the star of the show. Timberlake and Mystic Dan, very disappointing, more so Timberlake. Just Steel, upgrade, ran well. And Liberal Arts, let's see if they give him one more shot to get in the Derby because I think he deserves it. So useful race, certainly, for our purposes, for evaluating some primary Derby horses, I think. And just too bad we won't see Muth on the first Saturday in May.